It's the 13th of July. You know what really annoys the Scots is that sometimes the English think they own us. The problem is they might have a point, and I'm going to explain on this day in Scottish history. Hiya, I'm Bruce Fummey. If you're interested in the people, events and places in Scottish history, then subscribe to Scotland History Tours and click the bell symbol to be notified of new videos. In the meantime, let me tell you a story. Now, I try to make videos that are around 10 minutes long, but there's no way that I can do that and give you the context to this story in that time. So whilst this is about what happened on the 13th of July, you're only going to get the first episode today and the second episode a week from now on the 20th of July. Now, my Patreon members, they can get it now in the member site, and there'll be an explanation of how you can become a member after this video. Anyway, for this first episode, I've brought you to this unique round tower in Abernethy in Perthshire behind me. There are actually two of them in Scotland. They reckon that this one was built around 1100. It certainly would have been here during the reign of King William I of Scotland, William the Lion. It's from him that we get the lion rampant on the flag. William was one of the Canmore kings, descended from Malcolm Canmore. Now, from the time of Malcolm Canmore, Scottish kings were always raiding into Northumbria whenever they got the chance. I'll let you in a secret. It seems to me that medieval politics went a bit like this. If you thought you were more powerful, you invaded somebody and persuaded their leader to make a formal act of submission to you. And that way everyone knew their place, right? Everyone knew who was in charge, who owned who. Now there might be a bit of mopping up to do with the William Wallaces of this world, but that's a detail. If you were the weaker, then what you did was, when the larger power was looking the other way, you'd invade the borderlands, take as much as you can get your hands on, burn, loot and pillage. I'll be honest, I don't know the difference between looting and pillaging. Can anyone find out the difference between looting and pillaging and put the answer in the comment section below? That'd be really helpful. Anyway, after a few rounds of looting and pillaging, the looted and pillaged people think, if this powerful king's too busy elsewhere to protect us, we'd be better off just submitting to the looters. Now, you might still be technically part of England, but it's really the Scottish king who calls the shots. International power politics isn't much different now. Sometimes the weapons are economic or electronic, but essentially the game remains the same. We've only changed the chips. Chips. With steak. Anyway, when William of Normandy invaded England in 1066 using Method 1, Malcolm Canmore took the opportunity to employ Method 2 by invading the north of England. And eventually, when William had imposed himself down south, he came north with an army in 1072 and here at Abernethy forced Malcolm, the King of Scots, to make a formal submission to him in front of this tower. It might just have been there around about that time. The point is that there was a consequence to Malcolm's invasion of Northumbria. Now, when William of Normandy died, Malcolm was up to his old tricks again, invading the north of England when he perceived the new king to be weak. Eventually, Malcolm died on one of these raids into Northumberland. But from then, right down to Malcolm's great-grandson, William I, on the 13th of July, 1174, Scottish kings had been invading the north of England and sometimes facing the consequences. The consequences for David I were almost non-existent. He stretched his power and influence over the north of England, firstly by being close to the English king, Henry I. Henry was married to David's sister Matilda. After Henry's death, David took advantage of England's anarchy to do the looty pillagey thing. Now I don't know the adjective for looting and pillaging, stick it in the comment section. Right? So, by the time he died, David I was effectively in charge as far south as the Humber. Okay, it's 1154, David I of Scotland died a year ago. His grandson Malcolm's king. He's known as Malcolm the Maiden, because he was a crap batsman. It's a cricket joke because we're going to involve the English. Because Henry II has come to power in England.
He's the "who will rid me of this troublesome priest" guy. He was a grandson of David's sister Matilda. Henry was knighted by David. Now, if you've been paying attention, or you've seen my video about David I, then you'll know that David had extended Scottish influence and authority through the north of England to the Humber. When he was knighted by David, Henry had sworn a solemn oath that if he ever became King of England, he would respect the rights of the Scottish king to these northern English lands. Do you think he'll keep that oath? Comments. So, a year after David's death, Henry II, the new King of England, summons his cousin, the relatively new King of Scotland, for a traditional getting to know you, who's got the biggest willy meeting. Out of the blue, Henry says, "See that Northumberland, Cumberland and Westmoreland, north of England stuff? I want that back." Did you choose the right answer? Now, the Maiden looked at Henry's willy and it was the size of a big army. Malcolm the Maiden's was the size of a small entourage taken unawares by a lying, cheating scumbag of a... His willy wasn't big enough to hold the north of England.
Now, you're probably thinking, for a video about William I and the loss of Scotland, I'm talking a lot about other people. Honestly, the context is important. William is Malcolm the Maiden's brother. And when Malcolm dies without marrying, having children, or learning to play cricket, William becomes king. Now, he's still really annoyed at losing the north of England, and he's determined to get those lands back. The power balance, however, is such that William's initial approach is to suck up to Henry. William even goes on campaign with him to France and everything. But it doesn't work. In fact, Henry's starting to get a bit annoyed at William, and there's an angry outburst. To be honest, Henry's a bit of a hothead. Whoa, here's a bit of gossip. I alluded to this before, but did I tell you that Henry II has had a bit of trouble with his Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Becket? The thing is, he made Thomas Becket the Archbishop of Canterbury so that he'd do what he was told. But as Archbishop Becket's messing things up by being all religious and stuff like that, it's an outrage. Supporting the Pope? Who does that? Anyway, Henry's proper hacked off with him, and in a fit of rage, he shouts out, "Who will rid me of this troublesome priest?" And some of his knights look at each other. Was that an exasperated scream or an explicit instruction? I don't know, but we'd better head over to Canterbury and hack the bishop to death at the altar, just in case. It's gruesome, it's sacrilegious. In terms of horrific acts of British royalty, it's right up there with Prince Harry marrying a mixed-race American divorcee. You Daily Mail readers know who I'm talking about. And then something else happens. Henry manages to antagonise 3 of his sons and his wife. They start a revolt against him. So now you have a rebellion in England led by Henry's son, also called Henry. Young Henry looks for support from William in Scotland. Why not? The revolt's supported by the Flemish and the French. I'll be honest, things are collapsing around Daddy Henry II's ears. His previously powerful position is crumbling. His willy's shrivelling up to nothing, and William decides that this is the time to get the north of England back. Now, it's no surprise that everything's going badly for Henry, with rebellions and all that kind of stuff. Thomas Becket was martyred at the altar. Miracles of healing are happening to folk in his name. He's been made a saint. And you've got your sons rebelling and half of Europe against you. You know why that is, don't you? It's God punishing you for going back on your oath to that nice Scottish king. Speaking of Scottish kings, William invades the north of England on the side of Henry's sons. A couple of times, actually. He besieges a few castles, and then he splits his forces and he finds himself camped out with nothing but a small bodyguard of men near Alnwick. Now, on the morning of the 13th of July, on this day in Scottish history, a larger English force approaches their camp through the morning mist. The cry of sentries goes up. King William and his knights rush from their tents. He manages to get onto his horse, and then he charges headlong into the English, shouting, "Now we will see which of us are the good knights." that's the end of this episode. If you ever want to see the next episode, then first you'll need to click on the 39-second video, How to Support Bruce. Otherwise, episode 2 will be available next week. In the meantime, like, share, subscribe, and of course, Hami and Dochas can be Lama alive. Cheerio and Rasta.